Welcome to the Find My Catalyst podcast. We all have problems we're looking to solve, and we know there are solutions out there, but we struggle with this. How do we find that solution? Where does the nudge come from to help us take the next step and start solving tough problems? The intention of this podcast is to help you find your catalyst and take that next step. I'm Mike Simmons. I'm the founder of Catalyst Sale. As you know, these podcasts are brought to you by the Find My Catalyst game plan, your approach to goal setting and execution. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to findmycatalyst.com. I'm really excited about the guest I've got today. Andrea Waltz joins me on the podcast. Andrea and I first came across each other through Clubhouse, and you'll know her as the author of Go for No. Let's get to the conversation. Andrea, it is awesome to have you on the podcast and great to actually see you in person. Now, we don't do this in a video, and we're familiar talking with each other every couple of Saturdays on and off the Sales Talk Radio on Clubhouse. Thanks for doing this. How are you doing?
Absolutely. I know this. We've had some great conversations on Clubhouse. So here it is, just you and me. We get to have our own banter without getting interrupted by all those other people.
And it's pretty awesome because we see the same people. There are a lot of people that come back every week, and the conversations have been amazing. I've met some awesome people as we've gone through it, and just a really cool community to be a part of. So why don't we just start there? Like, where do you go to find community when you want to talk about some of the cool things that you're working on, or even things that you're struggling? Where do you tend to go to build and find community?
Yeah, I'm such a lover of personal development, personal growth, and sales. So Clubhouse actually has been kind of a cool, unique platform when I find that I have just some free time. Maybe I'm at the gym walking on the treadmill or whatever, and I just think, like, I don't want to be alone. I have a disease called multitasking. And I know that it's frowned upon, but I like doing it. And so Clubhouse actually has risen up as a great platform, that deeper conversation. And I really like Sales Talk Radio because people come back and you start to get to know people a little bit, and what you start to look for what their take might be on something. And I'm not as much of a fan, I will say, on the big, giant 300-person kind of seminars there. I really like the actual conversation where we kind of weave around and you never know what direction it's going to go in. That's the fun thing about it. So that's been a platform, LinkedIn. And, I will seek out just things randomly. You know how it is. You start on one thing and you go down a rabbit hole, and you've read 12 articles and you've listened to a podcast, and it's somebody you've never heard of, and you find out they have like 200,000 followers, and you're like, who is this person? So it's just, it's just random, to be honest.
So you are the co-author of Go for No. And it's interesting to hear you talk about multitasking, and then think of Go for No. And when I hear no and multitasking, or hear multitasking, I think, God, how do I stop doing certain things so that I can focus attention on this? But let's talk about Go for No. What inspired you to write the book?
So it was really inspired by the story that a situation that happened to my husband, and it's in the book. The book is actually a fable. A lot of people don't know that. It's a fable that we decided to come up with so that people connected emotionally to the story. But the story that kind of is I guess you would call it the conflict in the book, actually was something that happened to my husband. He was selling suits for a living. The sales were abysmal. The district manager came in and watched him have this great sale, and then proceeded to ask my husband, Richard, what did that customer say no to? And Richard had to admit that the customer of this great sale he had actually never said no to anything. Everything Richard laid in front of that man during this clothing sale, he purchased. And then this district manager said, well, then how did you know he was done? To which my husband then also had to admit, well, I guess I just decided he was done. And he rang him up and sent him on his way. So that was the catalyst. And I know that is a big theme in your business, for Richard learning the Go for No concept. He realized that in that moment, he was the one who ended the sale, because he was a young guy and the sale ended at like $1,100. He decided that customer was done. He ended it. And this district manager actually it's actually kind of amazing that he decided to share this wisdom, but she could have just kind of let go. I think that's what great leaders do. And pushed my husband and showed him another way that, hey, your fear of the word no is going to kill you. In fact, I think that's what he actually said, and said, I think you're a good salesperson, but if you could just learn to get over your fear of no, you could be a great salesperson. So my husband tells me this story when we were working at a company called LensCrafters. This is 23 years ago. He tells me this suit story with all of the bells and whistles and stuff that I didn't even elaborate. That was the short version. But I had this epiphany, Mike, because I was like, oh, wow, you know what? I don't like hearing no. And I actually thought I was a superstar salesperson. I thought I was like fantastic. Customers loved me. And then I had to get honest with myself that I didn't like hearing the word no. And so I have spent the last 20 years, after he told me that, we eventually got together both in a relationship, which is for another podcast, and business, launched a company speaking and training, and started teaching this idea of go for no. And I have dug into this for 2 decades now of how you think about no? Can you value a no? If so, how? Can you turn a no into a yes? How persistent should you be? Where does courage come in? There's so many nuances to this. How does fear play a role in this? And I absolutely love it. I'm so passionate about it because I realize that I think rejection affects everyone, but salespeople, obviously most of all, but all of us have to face failure. We have to face rejection in our lives looking for a job. It doesn't matter what you're doing, right? And so I just absolutely love it. So I wake up every day figuring out how to help people hear no more often.
So why do we, and you've used a number of different words in there when you were talking about one that jumped out at me is the fear of rejection. But what is it about this simple 2-letter word that is also a sentence of, what is there about this 2-letter word that brings this need or this feeling that we want to avoid it or stay away from it, or that it's not good? Yet when when we're kids and we don't want to do something, we say no all the time. And a lot of times when people say no to us, we say why, and we forget about those. But what's the challenge with this word no?
Well, with all of the studying I have done and all of the research that I have looked at, first of all, we are wired to not be rejected. And as we get older, as we move from that age of 4, 5, and 6, where we love, we will do whatever it takes. We don't care if our parents say no to us 1,000 times. It's nothing, right? We're just, okay, part of the process. But then we develop that self-awareness. And I think not only do we develop the self-awareness of we don't want to be embarrassed, we don't want to take risks personally, but also our brains start developing saying, hey, if you get rejected, you're going to get thrown out of the tribe here, and you're going to be left to hunt and gather on your own, and you're not going to make it. So our brains are very good at coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses and sabotage us for no other reason than our brains just think that we're idiots, basically, and we need to be helped. It's like, Mike, don't do that new project. Don't start that new business. You're going to fail. And I'm your brain, and I really want to make sure that you survive, right? So it thinks it's doing a good job, but it actually turns into sabotage. So we have to constantly fight against this biological wiring. And it is a constant battle because we're always trying to change those memes that we have repeating in our minds.
So how can we do that? Like what are there some practices that you will do? Maybe it's even on a daily basis, or remind yourself, or even what are some things that we can do to get better at overcoming the biology or the biological challenges that we have that are embedded in us in wanting to seek affirmation or avoid rejection? How can we overcome these things?
Exactly. And the antidote for that fear of rejection is in the heart of the whole idea of go for no. That's what it's all about, is you need to numb yourself to no. You need to be hearing no more often. I like to use the example because I think everybody can relate to it, even if you're not a performer or an actor. But can you imagine an actor coming to you, if you were friends with an actor and they said, hey, I just went on an audition and I got a no. And then you said, great. Well, are you going to go? Yeah, obviously you're going to go after more auditions. And they said, well, no, I got that one rejection. I'm done. We all know that actors have to go on hundreds. You hear the stories, hundreds of auditions till they finally get cast in the dream movie or a TV show or whatever. It's just part of the process. So there's no, and I like you use the word through. How do we go through it? And so the idea is we go for those no's in order to get to the yeses. It's the only way. There's no way around. There's no, I'm always amused by the, rejection-free language that's sometimes out there that kind of, I think, tricks salespeople into, I'll give you the script and the thing to make sure that you never get rejected. And that's an impossibility. We know that that doesn't exist, because if you're playing at a high level and you keep increasing that level, then that rejection should always be there. So the idea is in the phrase go for no. It is to seek out those no's, but also to use what you learn to get better. So let me just be clear. It's not about hitting your head against the wall and over and over and over. And just like a friend of mine said one time, like a woodpecker, where you're just going out the tree and you never learn. It's how can I then go for no, get some of those no's. And like a kid who's asking his mom for a cookie and she says no over and over, and he thinks, okay, I'm going to ask her a different way because this is not working. And it's not that kid just says, oh man, I'm not getting a cookie today. It's fine. I'll ask dad, or I'm going to wait, or I'm going to ask her in a slightly different way. That's why kids are so brilliant. So I love that you brought up the kid thing, but the answer is you go through it. Now, couple that with the idea that you have to do a lot of personal work, especially if you have a lot of anxiety around the no. And a lot of people who end up finding go for no do. They have a lot of anxiety around it.
I think one of the things I see a lot out there, I see people struggle with confidence. Like there's just this confidence of I can do it. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to fall. All of these things are going to happen as I go through it. But just the confidence to push or move forward or ask some of those difficult questions so that they can get to know, because they don't want to, at least what I see when it comes to sales process type stuff and managing pipeline and managing deals, you want to make sure that all the way around the corner, everybody is saying yes. Everybody is saying yes because it feels good that you've always got an opportunity up until the point that that opportunity never moves forward. And if you would have asked a more direct question early on in the process, you might have been able to avoid wasting a chunk of time working on something that was never going to turn into a real deal or a real transaction or a decision. So it's, I don't know if this helps anybody, but if you're struggling with no, and it's a confidence piece or a worry about where things are going to go if people start saying no to you, imagine how horrible it's going to be if you just spend all of your time wasting time doing the same thing over and over again and not getting to where you want to go. So we all have to deal with it. No's just part of the equation.
Absolutely. And I think there's a phenomenon. I know that we've all seen it and we probably lived it. I know I have. And that is that hope is not a strategy, but you kind of hope that maybe this thing will work out. And so you've got some deals in the pipeline and you haven't asked the real tough question, maybe just because you're making assumptions, but those tough questions, getting those no's early, I think that is a key characteristic of really top salespeople. They're kind of relentless that way. They get those no's out fast. They're comfortable with it. They would rather have all of that out of their pipeline so that they're working on high value, highly qualified, leads that are going to turn into something. And so they're willing to ask the tough questions. And the other part of that, and I think this is why that doesn't happen, is that people feel comforted when they have, I've got, this person and that person. And there's always this, again, hope that it'll turn into something.
So like you just went through the process of buying a house. So you moved from being in downtown Orlando to another place. And if you would have, did you get the first house you were looking for? Was it and I'm did it work out for you right out of the gate that you went into the house and that was the one and it was perfect and you didn't go any further? Or did you have to go through a couple of iterations?
We lost what I considered to be at the time, our dream house.
Oh no. Yes. So someone said no on your behalf.
Someone said no to us. And it was because and it was just, I guess these things are meant to be. Somebody came in before us, literally an hour before us. And in Florida, this market is like, you just better be on it. If somebody lists their home, you better like have psychic ability to figure out where that house is. And so we walk in, I didn't realize this woman, and the woman showing the house had accepted their offer, but failed to mention that to me. So I'm looking around and she's kind of selling me on her house. And I'm telling the real estate agent, I'm like, yes. Like, I want this, do whatever it takes. And it still was a no. And the funny thing about it is that, when you get those no's, sometimes they are really, they're really discouraging. And you sometimes have to just pause. You say, I'm not quitting. Our agent felt so bad. He's like, so are you guys just going to kind of cool off for a bit? And I'm like, that was very painful. That was devastating, but no, I'm calling you tomorrow. We're going to go look at another house. I'm still looking because we really were ready to transition over to living in a house rather than a high-rise apartment. We were kind of done with that whole thing. But when you get those big no's, you have to regroup. But you can't stay like that. And you can't assume that. I think sometimes there's streaks. We've all been on a hot streak where for whatever reason, it's like everybody's saying yes to us. You just go like, what is happening? I am on fire. And then there's times where you're just in a streak and you're getting a lot of no's. And sometimes they're really like, they're the no that you didn't want. You wanted that yes so bad. And it is discouraging. And there's no mind hack to get around that. There's no way to alleviate that pain. And literally research shows that a big rejection is physically painful. Again, there's reasons for this to keep us safe. And so you got to let yourself grieve a little bit and then get back into it as fast as you can. Because when you get into activity, you're focused on the future and you're not ruminating over the past.
And things will work out. Like you guys found a house. I imagine you're pretty happy with your house.
We did. We're very happy. And there's a lot of pluses and a lot of things in this house that we weren't getting with the other house. And a lot of, I think sometimes they say, everything works out for a reason. And I think a lot of times, that is true. And things do work out, but you've got to not give up, right? You got to stay in the game, really.
And I think that's the key thing that's coming out of the conversation here, which is, hey, look, it's going to happen. It doesn't stop you. Keep moving forward. Keep moving on. Go out and get the next rep. Go out and create the next opportunity. Go out and work through the next thing. So you focused on this for 20 years and it's a passion of yours. Can you share a success story or some kind of breakthrough that you've seen with someone where they didn't think that they would ever overcome this challenge, and then now they realized, wow, I don't know why I was so worried about this in the past?
Yeah, I need to be better at this. We have so many people who have, I think, had pretty radical transformations. But before I do, there's three really interesting groups of people, I think, that kind of emerge when you talk about just the idea of rejection. And I see them, I used to see them more when we would speak at live events. We haven't been in a live event for a while. We did a couple last year. And the people in the first category will always come up after we speak. So if we're in a room of 1,000 people, one person will come up and they'll say, loved your talk. I have zero problem with rejection. Like, I love it. I can take no all day long. Doesn't bother me. And, I always tell them, well, you're in the top 1%. You're a very unique person. And they're always like, thank God you were here for all the rest of these poor people. So there's that person. And then there's the people really on the very, very opposite side of the spectrum who hear this message and they think, I might be able to increase my no. She's telling me just to go for no, to go through it, to increase the number of times I hear no. But they still have so much fear around it. And those people, I help them work on giving themselves permission to fail. You really have to almost reparent yourself. You almost have to take yourself back to how it was when you didn't know anything. And we put so much pressure on ourselves, I think, as adults to have all the answers, to know everything, and to be perfect. A lot of perfectionists struggle with go for no. They don't like the idea of failing at all. They don't even like the word. I had people battle with me like, do we have to use the word failure? And so some of those people, they really, really struggle to the point where I can no longer help them because I'm not a psychologist. I know how to apply this from a business standpoint. So you have them, and then you have really the majority of people who understand the concept. They get it on an intellectual level. The idea, though, is to really kind of force them into action. You really have to force yourself. It's that you can lead a horse to water. So I'm showing everybody like, here's the water. It's good. Trust me. And everybody's kind of plodding along and like, all right, I'll try it. But reinforcing that behavior is really important. One of the ways that we teach people to do that is by setting what we call no goals. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But to go back to kind of who's successful, what things I've seen, one of the best things I've seen from people is not necessarily, a lot of people don't share their numbers results. Some people do. And it kind of, sometimes it's out of context because you don't, if you're not in that industry, you won't necessarily get it. But people's confidence really changes when they see that they're able to do something that previously they didn't think they could do before. A lot of people in that last group I talked about and the middle group where most people are, don't think they can go for no. They have kind of this mindset that they really don't like it and that they're really upset by it and they get frustrated with no. And so they hang on to that belief, I think is kind of like almost this safety blanket. So when I tell them, hey, just go for no, and I encourage them to do it and they do it, the confidence goes through the roof, like immediately. They do it, they get a couple no's, they then get a yes, which is then, oh my gosh, mind blowing. And then the confidence totally shifts and they realize that they kind of, it's like they're the wizard behind the curtain. We opened the curtain and it was them standing there. It's like, you've had the power all along. You're the one doing this. You're the one creating the fear about the no. And they have an epiphany and their confidence completely changes and then their results start to change. So I've seen that so much with people who write and say, I just can't believe how much better I feel about getting rejected. It doesn't have the same power over me. One of the biggest success stories, though, is a guy named Ray Higdon, who we ended up writing a book with called Go for No for Network Marketing. He's in the network marketing space and he really wanted to be successful. He's an incredibly driven person, far more driven than I'll ever be. And he read the book Go for No, and he decided, you know what, these guys say, set a no goal. I'm going to set a goal for 20 no's a day. And he's like, I'm just going to talk to anybody and anybody who's willing to listen to me for 5 minutes. I'm going to just share this stuff with everybody. And that was his goal. And he said, he just was relentless about it. And he talked to people and he made cold calls off of leads and he talked to people at the car wash and he talked to people at the gas station and he just talked to people relentlessly. And he became the top earner in that organization. And he did so well in that field for so long and helped so many people that he eventually launched his own company doing training for people in direct sales and network marketing. And his company even got on the Inc. 5000 list as one of the top growing companies. Ray is really a marketer. He loves marketing, but he also understands the relationship between sales and marketing and how you also need to get out there and sell and you're going to need to hear no. He's probably one of our biggest success stories because he just did the hard work of hearing no.
So you'd mentioned no goals and you talked about Ray with, he's going to shoot for 20. What's the process look like in coming up with your no goal as someone is hearing this for the first time and hasn't gone through the book yet, hasn't read the fable? What's the process for you're creating a no goal? How do you start with a no goal? How do you break through the comfort of saying, wow, I'm going to have a goal to be rejected? What's this look like to you?
Sounds crazy. I know. So when Richard and I started our business, we decided that after having a yes goal of 4 yeses a month for quite some time and always coming in at that yes goal, which was for us, it was 4 bookings a month. And it was so interesting because we managed to hit that every month. It was great. And then we said, wait a minute, we're the ones setting our own quota here. Who's the boss again?
It sounds like you're sandbagging. It sounds like you're just you're going through the motions and just managing to award a specific number, and you're missing a huge opportunity that's out there. So you shifted.
So we shifted and we said, let's get 100 companies to say no to us each month, and what would happen. So, and we had more business than we could even deliver at that point. Richard's finally, he was the speaker trainer of the two of us at that time. I was doing all the marketing, and he's like, all right, we finally hit the max. There's not two of us. And we had no desire to scale up and hire contract trainers and all that kind of stuff. And just didn't want the responsibility, kind of wanted the one man or two man shop, I guess it is. So how to do the no goal thing is really, you can reverse engineer it. So you could say, well, how I want 5 yeses a week, or I want 5 yeses a month. How many people does it take to get there? And if it takes 20 people, if it takes 20 meetings, then maybe to play it safe, you set a no goal of 25 a month or whatever. I think even today, if I was starting my business today, I would never be able to do get 100 companies a month. I mean, those numbers, I think we got people on the phone a lot more back then. We did a lot of direct mail where we sent a lot of packages based on getting people to say yes or no to getting a press kit in the mail. So you have to kind of do an assessment of where you are, and you can reverse engineer it based on your yes goal, or you could just say, I hear a couple no's a week. What if I just went for 10? And it can be in any category, right? So it could be if you're somebody who is really, you need to do a demo, you need to get an appointment, you need to do a demo, then maybe it's getting 10 no's to 10 demos. Or I think for, if I was talking to maybe an insurance agent, I would say, well, you could get no's to appointments, but you could also get no's to different lines. So are you just selling home? Are you trying to add in the auto? What about life? What about other lines of protection? You could get no's within a conversation, within a sale. So you can play around with that as well. Some people, I am not a data-driven person. I should be, because the data on this stuff is probably fascinating. I'm an anecdotal, well, this works, this is interesting type person. But I know people who will track, not just, they'll categorize their no's. Like I had this many no's just making prospecting calls. And then I booked the appointment. And then when I got to the appointment, I had this many no's and yeses to actually signing the deal. And then, and so you could track this stuff all the way through if you're super data driven.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's coming up just as we're talking through this is the value of no, the value of looking at this and saying, hey, this is something that, one, I shouldn't fear. It can help accelerate activity because I get clarity in the conversations that I'm having with people. It can also get me in a better position to work on and work for and work with those people who are in a better position to say yes. So there's a lot of value in embracing the no, embracing the opportunity to get to know.
There's so much value in no. It is the counterintuitive thing about it. In fact, for Mark Hunter wrote a book called A Mind for Sales. I think it came out last year. And he actually contacted me and he said, Andrea, would you write a little piece for me about the value of no? That's literally what the little section I wrote for him is called. And there's so many ways to value it. If you value, like you were just saying, what are you seeing from those no's? Where are your gaps? I mean, no's teach you things if you're paying attention. And I tell people to do this all the time. You've got to look at where you're getting the no. If you're getting it early on in the process, then you've got an issue somewhere along the line with how you're getting your leads or your qualification or disqualification process. If you're getting no's later on, when you're, kind of trying to close the sale, then obviously you've got a gap somewhere in the process. Something isn't working correctly. So it's trying to pay attention to where you're hearing those no's, changing things up, getting creative. If you have people saying no to you for the same reason, obviously that is also a big red flag. And you've got to say, okay, I'm not doing well enough on the value. If you're getting no to price time and time again, then you need to work on building the value and work on that. So it teaches you so much. Oftentimes, you have to be kind of a detective about it. Sometimes it's not really obvious. People sometimes ask, well, can I ask why? Can I ask these people? Can I ask my prospect why? And if you have if you're able to, I say go for it. I mean, that's a great little bit of, insight to why did you say no? Not only could it maybe save the sale because you actually get the real reason and you get information, but it absolutely could help you in the future. So, hey, Mike, do you mind if I ask you, just out of curiosity, it would really help me going forward. I appreciate you looking at everything. I appreciate you telling me no, but out of curiosity, why? Because I really want to learn from this interaction going forward because I thought this was perfect for you. Just being vulnerable.
Oh, well, and giving people space to answer the question. So you ask the question and then sit back and listen and even go another layer deeper. Let them give you that piece of information and then ask for some additional clarification there. And it's amazing what you'll listen. And what I'm realizing is I've got this verbal tick where I like to use "it's amazing" and then follow it up with something else. So it's become, I'm going to have to keep track of how often I'm going to have an "it's amazing" number and then cry to myself about the number of times that I use this phrase over and over again. But there's a lot of power in being able to be comfortable asking questions. And many of these questions and statements that we just have talked about are in us. And everybody who's listening to this at some point in time was a 2-year-old at some point in time, unless you're really ahead of the curve and you're introducing your 1.5-year-old to this podcast. And if so, just make sure you pay attention to who's on the podcast. We usually will mark explicit if the language is there, but we forget about the basic things that we did in our youth that helped us learn quickly and test quickly. And here's another example of where you can embrace something that you may have avoided in the past to help you get better at doing what you want to do in the future. Andrea, this has been an absolutely amazing conversation. As we wrap things up, what are some suggestions, final suggestions that you would give those who are listening right now as they think about implementing Go for No or think differently about Go for No as they move forward?
Mike, it's really just a very simple process. It's look around and assess where you are. So create a no awareness. Really, ask yourself, do you ever hear no? It's a lot of salespeople. You ask them, how many yeses did you get last week? They'll know the number, no problem. They have no idea how many no's they heard. So figure out how many no's are you hearing now? Create that no awareness. Then set a no goal. Just challenge yourself. You don't have to make it crazy, ridiculously difficult. It doesn't have to necessarily be perfect. Maybe you hit it immediately and you realize, wow, that was easy. I have no problem getting 5 no's in a day, or maybe not. And then 3, just have the courage to execute in those go for no moments. So to kind of wrap up, a go for no moment really is any time in your sales process where you have the opportunity to ask. It's asking for the appointment, asking if the person is ready to take the next step, wherever and however that happens. It's really executing on those go for no moments. So in the moment where you see, you think to yourself, oh, this is it. This is one of those go for no moments. Don't talk yourself out of it. Don't say oh, I don't want to be that salesperson. I don't want to have to ask. You have to ask. You absolutely have to ask. It's your prerogative. And if you believe that to sell is to serve, and you believe in bringing value to people, and you believe in what you sell, and all of those are really important. We didn't even talk about them, but they are really important. Then you are really obligated to ask in that moment so that you can serve that person. So that final piece, it's kind of you assess, you set that goal, and then you just take action in those moments and try to keep your brain from freaking out and talking you out of it.
And know it's normal. You're going to freak yourself out and your brain is going to tell you no, or be careful, or all of these other things. Just push through it and you'll be fascinated by what happens on the other side of that. Andrea, where can people go to find out more about what you're working on and connect with you if they'd like to connect directly with you?
Yeah. So We're well branded, which is because we've been around a while. So if you type Go for No really into any social platform or online at goforno.com, just like it sounds, you will find us. You can't not find us. All you have to do is type in Go for No. We just finished, I think on our website, hopefully it'll be up tomorrow, recalibrating. So by the time this comes out, it'll definitely be working. A fun quiz that we have on our website. You can find out what your no quotient is. So I love when people take that and they can kind of see where their mindset is. You get a score and all of that. Not super scientific, but scientific enough. So yeah, people can come to the website and check that out.
Very cool. We'll include links to the show notes. If you know of anybody who would find value out of this conversation or needs to hear this conversation, please share it with them. Let Andrea and I know. Maybe come by and see us on Clubhouse one of these Saturday mornings. Sales is a thinking process. How are you thinking differently about yours?